Okay, let's dive into a really fascinating piece of history. We're going to go back to the 19th century to look at how a single prophecy, just one passage from the book of Revelation, somehow sparked a global religious movement that completely changed countless lives. So, this is it. This is the text at the very heart of this whole story. Now, when the prophecy talks about a flying angel delivering this message, the people back then didn't think it was a literal physical angel. They saw it as a symbol, for a divine impulse, a movement of people on earth who felt called to deliver this incredibly urgent warning to the whole world. So you gotta ask, right? How did these ancient words, written so long ago, suddenly catch fire in the 1800s? To really get a handle on its impact, we have to look at the world it was born into. To really get this, we have to understand the historical soil that this prophetic seed fell on. The air itself was just buzzing with this feeling that history was speeding up, that something huge was about to happen. And man, when you look at this timeline, you can see why people felt that way. For Bible students, 1798 was a massive prophetic turning point. They saw it as the end of a predicted 1,260-year period. But look what was happening around it. The huge Lisbon earthquake in 55, that bizarre dark day in North America in 1780, and then this insane meteor shower in 1833. I mean, to the people living through it, it must have felt like the signs of the end times were literally unfolding right in front of them. So all this excitement really lit a fire under people's interest in prophecy. And right in the middle of this buzz, an ordinary farmer named William Miller starts this personal journey that would, well, change everything. Let's meet the guy at the center of it all. The thing about Miller is he wasn't some highly educated theologian. He was a farmer who just had this deep, burning desire for truth. So for 2 years, he just buried himself in the Bible, studying verse by verse, and he used this crucial tool, the day for a year principle. Now, this is key. He didn't invent this. It was a well-known method that Bible scholars had been using for centuries. But for him, it turned out to be the key that unlocked everything. And if you're wondering why people took this method so seriously, well, check this out. In the summer of 1840, this preacher, Josiah Litch, uses the exact same principle to publicly predict that the Ottoman Empire's power would crumble on August 11, 1840. And what happens? On that exact day, a series of diplomatic events take place that do just that. I mean, can you imagine? This stunningly accurate prediction just gave incredible credibility to the whole method and poured fuel on the fire of this growing movement. All right, so with all that as a backdrop, let's zero in on the core message itself, the first angel's message, and see how these believers understood their mission. So this is the crucial point. You can just feel the urgency in those words. Notice the tense. It doesn't say judgment will come someday. It says the hour of his judgment has come. It's a present reality. They understood this to mean that something had already started in the courts of heaven. This wasn't just some local news. It was a global call to wake up and get right. Now, this second part of the message is just as huge. It's not just, hey, judgment's here. It's a call to get back to worshiping the Creator. And hidden inside this call was a discovery that was, well, it was revolutionary. Look closely at the wording. Worship him who made heaven and earth, the sea. It's almost a direct quote from the fourth commandment, the one about the Sabbath. For these believers, it was like a lightning bolt. They suddenly saw that this urgent, end-time message was directly tied to honoring the memorial of creation, the seventh-day Sabbath, which, honestly, most churches had completely forgotten about. But you know how stories go. Just as the movement hit its absolute peak, it ran smack into its greatest crisis, a moment that would become known as the Great Disappointment of 1844. Can you even imagine the scene? Thousands of people, so certain in their belief that they'd sold their farms, their homes, they'd said their final goodbyes to loved ones, and they were all just waiting with this incredible joy for Jesus to return. And the day came, and it went. The sun rose the next morning just like any other day, and nothing. The emotional crash from that peak of hope to the absolute pit of despair, it must have been just devastating. So this became the burning question. What do you do now? Was the whole prophecy just a huge mistake? Was all that study and calculation wrong? Or could it be that the timing was right, but they had completely misunderstood the event that was supposed to happen? And what's really incredible is that in the middle of all that pain and confusion, they didn't just give up. They didn't abandon their faith. Instead, they went right back to the Bible, searching, digging, desperate for an answer. And out of that, They came to a brand new understanding that unlocked the whole mystery. And this slide really shows you the huge shift in their thinking. They realized the date, 1844, was actually correct. The prophecy was right about the time. What they had gotten wrong was the event. It wasn't about Christ returning to earth, it was about him starting a new, final phase of his work in the heavenly sanctuary. And this new concept that came out of all this study was called the investigative judgment. The idea was this: before Christ comes back, he first begins this final work in heaven. Like a high priest, he reviews the life records of every single person who has ever professed faith in him to see whose faith was genuine and who will be saved. That was the heavenly event that started in 1844. This quote just sums it up perfectly. Their whole spiritual focus shifted. They weren't just looking down at the earth anymore, waiting for a return. Their gaze was lifted upward, following Christ by faith into this new ministry in heaven. So the first angel's message wasn't over, not at all. It actually became the foundation for a much bigger, much more complete message that's still being shared today. And this brings us way beyond just a 19th century history lesson. It really raises this deep, timeless question for all of us, doesn't it? When a belief you hold with your whole heart is completely challenged by reality, what comes next? It's a question about faith, about disappointment, and about that search for a deeper truth. Definitely something to think about.